Good morning, SML, and happy Friday. Back here, Eminem in the morning. It's week 18, the biggest season ever, according to the NFL, apparently. Matt, what's going on? Good morning.
Good morning, man. I've been trying to get used to that 18th week and seeing the standings with 17 games and the win and loss column there. But I'm excited. The playoffs are right around the corner.
Oh, yeah, they're coming. I think we're about halfway through week 18, if not a little bit further through. Got a few more games coming up today on Friday. And I think, right? We're advancing tonight, yeah, to the playoffs?
I think so, yeah. Sometime tonight.
Yep, 10 p.m. Eastern Friday is the advanced time officially. It'll probably be before that because that's just how we roll. SML for life. All right, so let's talk playoffs. I know it already went through on Heat Check. Shout out to Heat Check. Go listen if you haven't yet. They did a game-by-game analysis of what they thought was going to happen in the playoffs. We're not going to do that. We don't want to be repetitive. So what we're going to do now is we're going to give you who we think's going to win each conference, the Super Bowl matchup, and who we think's going to win and why, instead of going game by game. I mean, we can still talk about the playoffs, just a little bit shorter. So, Matt, I don't know, you can pick your conference and just tell me who you think's going to win.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna go to the side where I don't really have a whole lot to say. I think I'm gonna start in the NFC. I think it's a three-horse race. I think you got Arizona, Detroit, and Tampa Bay. I think the best player is in Detroit, but I think the worst team is in Detroit. So I'm going to go with my Super Bowl representative for the NFC. And I'm going to take the Arizona Cardinals and dump.
So the NFC is really interesting to me because, I mean, like you said, those top three, clearly the top three in that conference, might be for the rest of the cycle. D-Muse could turn it around, but he's currently on the outside looking in, and is gonna take a Seahawks loss to Arizona to just for D-Muse to make the playoffs as the 7th seed. The thing about the NFC is that they don't have many proven winners. Yes, regular season they've got proven winners, but when it comes to the playoffs, we don't even have to go there. Paulie, he's never made it to a Super Bowl, despite being one of the best teams in the regular season. Same with QP. Now, QP's the newest of those three, so he's probably got less of a track record, but still, you could argue a couple times last cycle where he probably should have won some playoff games that he lost. So it's really going to be interesting to see who comes out of this NFC. If I'm going to put my money on anybody, though, I'm going to put it on the Lions, and just because I've been really impressed with what QP has done with this roster, it's not even easily, not even like debatably, it's easily the worst roster of the 7 playoff teams, whether or not Noel or D-Muse gets in. That doesn't change it. It's a bottom 2, 3 roster in the league, and he's up here at the 2 seed. And, barring the results of that Arizona game, could be the 1 seed.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that we need to really appreciate. I know a lot of the attention's on the AFC because, especially lately, because there's so many different scenarios of who could have got in and things like that, whereas the NFC was a little more solidified. But what's kind of flown under the radar is what QP has done with those Lions. And he did beat Dump earlier in the season, but it's impressive. That roster is hot garbage. I mean, he got Herbert, obviously a huge pickup. That's gigantic. He had to do something with those picks, and he probably did the best he could do with them. I think for me, when I look at the rosters of the Cardinals and the Bucks, I mean, the Cardinals have a perfect Madden 22 roster. You've got great receivers. You've got one of the most mobile quarterbacks, if not the most mobile. Amazing user in Justin Simmons. And then the Bucks, they're just stacked everywhere. Paulie's got so many guys, he can't even use them all, so he's having to trade them to get everybody on the field. And he still has work to do in the offseason. I'm sure Levante David is gone. But if QP comes out of this conference season 1 with that roster, my hat's off as one of the more impressive seasons that I've seen in my time here.
I think when it comes to the playoffs, at least in my experience, I've seen that roster talent does not necessarily become the most important thing. In my opinion, the most important way to win in the playoffs is mindset. It comes down when everybody is so good and we've got so many good matchups coming up in these playoffs. When you're this close together, it's going to come down to who's got the best mindset, who's going to go out and win the close games, who's going to go out and make the right decisions in crunch time, who's going to call a timeout in the right time, and who's going to forget to call a timeout. It's going to come down to those small decisions. I mean, maybe even in the first half, later on in the game, you're like, oh, I should have kicked a field goal here instead of going for it. And it's going to come down to that, and that's what's going to decide some of these games, not so much roster talent. I mean, you want to come out and talk roster talent. I mean, there is no reason that the Cardinals and the Buccaneers should not be the NFC Championship game, at least for this season, if not a couple of seasons in the future, just based on roster talent. However, I mean, like I said, roster talent's not the most important thing. And as I mentioned earlier, this NFC conference has a lot of questions when it comes to who's a proven playoff winner. Now, everybody coming into these playoffs does have multiple playoff wins in their SML career. I will give them that. The only one I'm not sure on is Noel, but I know he's not an offer in the playoffs. And D-Muse, if he does make the playoffs over Noel, has made it to the Super Bowl. To me, what the funniest part about this whole playoffs thing is not who's in and who's out. The funniest part of the playoffs is that the only team in the NFC that is going to make the playoffs that has made a Super Bowl previously is NYT. That blows my mind, because you'd think we've got so many guys that have been in the Super Bowl. Somebody else is going to come out of that conference, but that just goes to show that the NFC is really that unproven conference.
Yeah, and NYT made the Super Bowl so long ago. I wasn't even in the league when it happened, so I don't know if that was last cycle or the one before, but I was not here. So to me, none of them have made the Super Bowl. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Someone has to this year, though.
So we've mentioned that we've not seen the results of the Cardinals-Seahawks game, and the Vikings did beat the Bears earlier today, or I guess technically yesterday, since we're recording Thursday night. So if the Cardinals win, the Seahawks are out and the Vikings are in. And if the Seahawks win, they clinch a spot and eliminate the Vikings. I mean, it's probably going to be the Vikings in the playoffs. Dump's still playing to win the game. He's still got to clinch that 1 seed. Lions and Packers did play. Lions won. So if the Seahawks win and the Cardinals lose, that puts the Lions in the 1 seed. So Dump's still got stuff to play for, and he's not going to be taking it easy.
Yeah, I think D-Muse is one of the threats in the NFC that aren't part of the big three. He's a proven winner. I think he's got that team a little bit under control now. I know he was a little wild with Kellen Mond, but he seems to have gotten it together. As I was looking at it, I thought, if I was Dump, maybe I throw this game against Noel so that Noel gets in and it keeps D-Muse out. But you're right, he can't do that because he does not have the tiebreaker over QP. He would fall to the 2 seed. So Dump needs to win that game, which would let D-Muse, in my opinion, a more threatening opponent to the NFC than Noel, into the playoffs. So I agree with you. I think that Dump wins and D-Muse gets in.
So let's go on that line of thought here for a second. What happens if the Cardinals lose? If the Cardinals lose, they fall to the 2 seed. That means we have a Week 18 and then wild card round matchup between the Seahawks and the Cardinals again, which I think has happened at least one time in recent memory in the NFL, where you play a team the last week of the season, then you play in the first round of the playoffs. If Dump really does lose legitimately, then that is then a troubling matchup. However, if he throws the game, you expect him to come out and win that game handily. Then he would get the highest remaining seed, which you would assume is the Buccaneers. Now, that's not guaranteed, but that's not an easy walk in the park either. Meanwhile, you get your first round bye if you win, and then you get the lowest remaining seed, which is either, assuming that Paulie's going to beat the Saints, is either going to be the football team or the Bears, and I think the Bears are probably favored in that game. So it's really the easiest path for the Cardinals is to win their game this week, get that first round bye, and then they only got to win one game. They're in the NFC Championship game. Yep,
get that 1 seed. Then you only have to beat one of the Lions and the Bucks, most likely. Obviously, assuming they both advance like we would expect, you only are going to have to beat one of them if you're the 1 seed. So, I can't imagine a world where Dump wants the 2 seed. I know there might be times where that might be a strategy, but he would have to get Paulie in the second round, and then if he won that, he'd probably end up playing QP, so you have to beat them both. So I expect Dump to come out really trying to win that game, maybe put it away early if he can, rest some starters as it fades into the third and fourth quarter. But I fully expect him to be the 1 seed.
Yeah. All right, let's flip sides of the AFC now. Who do you got coming out and why?
Yeah, well, the AFC is interesting because you've got Dan, who's won 1 million games in a row. You've got Prime, who you can never count out, especially with the team that he's got. And then, honestly, you've got the Browns, who have the best player, in my opinion, and maybe not the best, but the most dominant player in the entire playoffs. He's on a little bit of a skid, but there's someone I forgot, though. Oh, the Bills. I forgot about the Bills. Yeah, they're going to come out of they're coming out of the AFC. All that talk about the other ones, it doesn't matter. He's only lost 1 game. It's 2 in the standings, but 1 was against the computer, against me. Doesn't count in my opinion. And he lost a fluke to the Jets. He should be undefeated, and he will not lose in the playoffs. I think he will only have I think only 1 of his games will be close. I don't know who it'll be. Probably if he plays Bomber, because Bomber can run the ball so well. But he's going to the Super Bowl, no doubt about it in my mind.
Yeah, I can't. I just can't go against Faz right now. He's playing lights out. He's 14-2, likely to be 15-2, depending on his game against the Jets, which would be Friday afternoon. I think he's favored. I know he lost that matchup earlier in the season. DW has the ability to beat Faz. I don't think he will do it again. So that's a 15-2 Bills team riding at least a 5-game win streak since their last loss, which was to that Jets team. I think when you compare him to the Browns, you got 2 teams just going in opposite directions. The Browns have kind of limped into the playoffs now after a really strong start to the season. And I say limping, knowing full well they put up 56, but that was on the Bengals. Meanwhile, Faz is just, he's winning games that he should win, and he's not really allowing guys to stick close to him. And then you hop down to that likely 3 versus 6 matchup in Prime and Dan. That's immediately going to take one of those guys out. That's going to take a guy that both those guys in the NFC are probably the favorites to win the conference. We talked about Dan a couple of weeks ago on the podcast. Dan started 0-5. Currently, Dan is 11-5. So 11 straight wins, and I don't think anybody expected any differently. I probably expected his record to be better at the start of the season, but because he started 0-5, he still finishes with a great record. He's going to be 11-6 or 12-5, probably 12-5. That's going to be an interesting game too. I think really the only true challenger to the Bills is probably the Chargers, and I know I'm going to eat my words here, because either the Browns or the Chiefs is going to do something miraculous, and it's going to make me regret saying that. But the Chargers are playing the best ball in the SML right now, aside from maybe the Bills. 11 straight wins, it's hard to go against that.
Absolutely. And I liked how you said he's the biggest challenge to the Bills. I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna really go big brain on you. I don't think the biggest challenge to the Bills is even in the SML. I think the biggest challenge to the Bills is the weather. Um, I watched the Fields game. I don't remember who he was playing, but it was in the snow. And Tannehill, poor Field. It was a playoff game. If he wins, he controls his own destiny. Big game. He's in it the whole time he's in this game, but Tannehill cannot complete a pass in the snow. I mean, guy's wide open. He can't even get close to him. And it was obviously the snow because Tannehill's not a bad quarterback in this game. I don't know how Josh Allen will look in the snow, but if snow affects QBs that bad, good or bad QBs, Faz can't run the ball. And if he comes up against Bomber and it's a snow game and it's Nick Chubb versus Matt Breida or Zach Moss or Singletary, whoever the heck he uses, that's where I would get nervous if I was a Bills fan, because I think that's a game that Bomber is probably favored in. But so I think his only real challenge is going to be the weather. To be honest, I'm that high on the Bills.
I'm not going to think too much into the fact that you forgot that it was the Titans playing me in that game. But, yeah, I got to say, firsthand knowledge, I was kind of surprised how much throwing the ball was hard in the weather, especially in the snow. I mean, I didn't really notice anything in the rain. But in the snow, it was like Tua has missed a handful of passes this year. I'd say he might miss, like, an open drag route, like, once every 3 games or something. I mean, he missed like 4 or 5 throws that game in the snow. And not to mention Mike Gesicki, who's like 85 overall, has like 88 catching or something. Let a wide open touchdown pass bounce off of his hands and into a defensive backs for a pick. So the snow really does affect every part of the game. I don't know what it does on carrying. There were a couple of fumbles in that game too, so that would leave something to be concerned more for the Bills, I think, because they don't have the running backs to compete with a guy like Nick Chubb. But I mean, yeah, I think you're really on to something there. However, I'm going to disagree with you because Faz is one of the most efficient passers in the league. Let's say Josh Allen goes out and he misses 4 throws. I don't think 4 throws is going to change a game. I mean, 4 incompletions, it's like if Faz completes, 75% of his passes or whatever he's been completing, he's going to miss 4 throws. It's like not a big deal. Oh, he's 78% completion. So even more than I thought. Let's say he goes out and throws 65%. I mean, that's still like good. That's like average numbers. And then you're doing that in the snow. And then you're going to go up against guys that are worse passers who are completing 70% or 65%. And they're going to miss those same 4 throws. And now they're completing only 60% or 55%. I think it is a bit of an equalizer, especially in a matchup against the Browns. I just don't think it's going to be that big of an issue.
Yeah, I mean, and I think there's a good chance, being that he plays in Buffalo, that all of his playoff games could be in the snow, especially since he's going to have a bye, and that's going to push the calendar out another week. So I do anticipate that he's probably going to be one that builds a dome as soon as possible. But I hear what you're saying, and looking at your box score against Field, Tannehill was 4 of 13, which that was going to my counter argument to what you just said. But then I looked at Tua, and he was 19 of 23, so I lost my counter argument there because you threw the ball well, but Tannehill didn't. So I don't know where that error was at on Field side potentially. But back to my point of I get what you're saying, and I think the Browns are the scary spot for Faz there, although Dan does run the ball better than people think. Bomber would be able to beat Faz the way that I beat Faz in the last cycle, and that is just, yeah, let's say maybe he has 4 throws that he doesn't complete, but maybe those are 2 of those are interceptions and 2 of those are on 3rd down, and now he's losing possessions because of those, and Bomber's milking the clock with Chubb, and even though he's an efficient passer, Faz, he's not getting the ball enough. He was an efficient passer last year. I just never let him have the ball, and that's the only reason I beat him. So I think that's going to be the interesting thing. But if weather's not a factor, good luck beating those Bills, and hats off to whoever can do it.
Okay, so let's talk about that weather for a second. Now, my Super Bowl matchup from a very sunny domed Los Angeles is going to be Lions and Bills. I think the Bills win that game. I do. I think the talent differential on the field is going to come into play. Those guys are both very good players. I think QP is going to be buoyed by some ability to win in the playoffs. He's going to go in confident. They're both going to play well, and then it's just going to come down to talent and maybe one mistake. Whoever makes the first mistake is basically done. And I'm going to take the Bills over the Lions. Take the owners off the field for this. I know this is kind of contradictory to what I said earlier. But in a matchup between the two best teams in the league, which, they would be by default in the Super Bowl, really the talent could come into play. It's not going to in a situation like Saints-Bucks, where they're both very good players, but, it's going to come down to the mental side of that game. This game could come down to that, but really, all else being even, I just gotta take the better roster. So I'm gonna say the Bills win the Super Bowl over the Lions.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I mean, I think QP would have to do what I just mentioned that Bomber would do, and that's play ball control. You don't want to get in a shootout. He doesn't have the offensive talent to do that. And I mean his personnel. QP has talent, but his personnel doesn't. In my matchup, of course, it's the 2-1 seeds. I mean, that's kind of not really going out on a limb here, guys, but I do feel very strongly in these 1 seeds. I'm assuming that the Cardinals will be the 1 seed. But I got to go with Faz. I think this is going to be a shootout. I think Dump is capable of putting up points. I think this is a game where it's tough to stop guys if they know what they're doing on offense, which you could say the NFL is the same way. But here's the thing. I know we've given Faz has gotten a reputation of kind of getting in his own head, and last year when guys would just run the ball on him, he would just get frustrated with the run, and his game would fall apart. Dump does that too. Dump goes into chat and he's flapping his gums because he's so good, and he's 14-2. He's got the right to talk, but then when he loses, he's looking for the reason on why he lost, and he's never looking in the mirror. So I think if he starts giving up points to Faz, which he will in that game, does he just get down on himself and start thinking that the game is against him, or Faz is doing something, and it gets in his head and he loses the mental game? And you don't want to do that against Faz. He's mentally sound, mentally tough. I call him the Madam Prodigy because he uses really big words in his streams when he's reading defenses. So I'm taking the Bills over the Cardinals in my Super Bowl, and I think he wins by 2 scores at least.
Wow. So I mean, the two are maybe the two best talent-wise teams, top to bottom at least, in the league, and you think it's going to be a borderline blowout?
I think it's going to be a close game. I think it'll be a good back-and-forth game. I just think Faz remains mentally strong, and at the end of the game, 2 scores is only 10 points. I'm not going to go with a blowout. But I will say that I would like Faz to find some semblance of a running game. Maybe Zach Moss. Maybe he's found it with Zach Moss. But yeah, I just don't know how you stop that Buffalo offense. When I watch it, it's just a well-oiled machine. If he doesn't fumble, he doesn't lose to the Jets. So, and I know if he fumbles, then he could lose any of these games. But so can anyone. It's just so well-oiled that if he doesn't fumble or get a bad break or multiple bad breaks, I don't see how you beat him.
All right, so there you go. We got both of us picked the Bills winning the Super Bowl, which means they are destined to lose in the divisional round. Sorry, Faz.
Watch it snow and Josh Allen can't complete a pass, and he just fizzles out first game. I don't think it'll happen, but
2 of 13 for 5 interceptions.
He will build that dome so fast. He won't even do any free agency trades. He won't even be at the draft. He's just going to be building that dome.
We're going to be hearing the Bills have traded the entire team and the owner to Los Angeles.
Yeah.
And now the Chargers are in Buffalo.
Yeah, maybe let Dan get that 1 seed next time, and you can play in sunny LA the whole time.
Right. All right, moving on. I wanted to bring up something. We were kind of talk about it in chat a little bit. It was brought up on Heat Check, and I want to just talk about this narrative here that they brought up. And I'm paraphrasing here, so please do not come at me in chat when I inevitably get something wrong. They said something similar to the effect of, if you're a bad quarterback user and you have a top 10 pick, don't waste that top 10 pick on another quarterback that you're just going to throw 50 interceptions with. Use it to build the team up around a quarterback that you already have on your roster, and you can at least develop him into a better quarterback. Because I think they said, unless you get a superstar or an X factor with that pick, it's going to be more of the same. What are your thoughts on that opinion and that school of thought?
I agree with it for the most part. I just have a little bit of a caveat to it. I don't think it's necessarily as black and white as you can't pass, so don't draft a quarterback. I don't think that is how I would look at it. My thing, and as someone who's generally not a good passer myself, I've been better this year just because I think the game makes it easier with how bad the defense is. What I do is, and I get a lot of crap for using Haskins, and I certainly understand that there's some clout to that, but for me, when I look at my season, I think, is Dwayne Haskins why I was 8-9? No, I was 8-9 because I couldn't stop anybody, and my offensive line couldn't block anybody. So I'm not going to go out and replace Dwayne Haskins because I don't think he's the problem with my team. I'm going to build up in the trenches to see if I can run the ball better and give Haskins more time, and I'm going to try and get a little bit better defense. I was really good against the run. I was terrible against the pass, so bulk up that secondary a little bit. So I think you've really got to just look at your team and say, okay, if I had a better this, I think my record would be X amount better or X amount different, and go that route. Don't just look at it black and white and say, I can't pass, I'm never going to draft a QB. I don't think you're going to need a quarterback if you have a bad one, but fix the needs where you think your record will improve the most and go from there.
So let's flip the script now. Now you've got a team like the Vikings, who have a 71 overall rookie quarterback in Kellen Mond, who completed 68% of his passes, 27 touchdowns, 22 picks. If you're a guy that knows he can win, and you feel like the one thing holding you back is a quarterback on your roster, do you then turn around? Let's just use the Vikings as an example. Do you think the best way, if D. Muse feels like he needs a new quarterback, should he go after one in the draft? Or this Vikings team is aging like crazy. Do they go after some weapons for Mond, or some offensive line for Mond, or some help on the defense? I mean, Harrison Smith's not going to be around forever. It's a really interesting topic because Kellen Mond is probably holding D. Muse back a little bit. He's 10-7. Now he made the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson, who was better than Mond, but not by a ton at the point that he was using him. And Mond's up at least 4, maybe 5 overall points this season because he's only 22 years old. What would you do in that situation? Because I'm not sure.
Well, I think Dom's off season is probably gonna be predicated by what happens between whether he gets in the playoffs or not. If he gets in the playoffs, I certainly could see him winning a game. But even if he doesn't, that tanks his draft stock a little bit, and I don't think he's going to get a quarterback. And I don't really think that the Vikings have assets to go up and get one. At least not assets you'd want to trade. And you mentioned it. That team is aging, especially on defense. And you've got nice pieces on offense with Dalvin Cook and Justin Jefferson. And Adam Thielen, I think, will be serviceable as a slot guy for probably another season. You've got Irv Smith at tight end. So if I'm him, I'd probably take best player available on defense. And I kind of poke around in free agency. Maybe a Matthew Stafford. I could see that really propelling Dom if he's available. Strong arm quarterback, decent accuracy. But there's not much of a future with Matthew Stafford. He's got a future with Kellen Mond, and he's been more successful with him. If you'd asked me this question week 7, week 6, I'd have said, how's he not making a trade now before the deadline? but he's kind of settled into a rhythm with Kellen Mond. He looked good versus me. I'd give him another shot, especially with where he's going to be drafting, whether he makes the playoffs or not. I would fill some other holes on this team. I think good players are going to fall in this draft because of the rush for the quarterback. Um, and there are some guys that obviously already have quarterbacks that won't take them. So I think the combination of those two things, I'd look at this defense and I'd build them up because, like you said, Harrison Smith is old. Patrick Peterson's his best corner. He's not even good, and he's 31. So that's what I would probably do, is build up this defense.
I've been on both sides of this coin in my SML career. Lately, just based on the fact that I had Lamar and Kyler, I've been on the development side of this coin. This cycle, I'm probably on that side as well. I was non-committal to start the season, but I was pretty impressed with how Tua played the whole season, that I think I'm going to stick with him as long as he doesn't want $1 billion when I have to re-sign him. But previously, I mean, when I was the Bengals, I had Andy Dalton. He was old. I had to get rid of him just so I could have a quarterback for the full cycle. And I played with Davis Webb, who was serviceable. He was like a low 70s guy as a rookie or whatever. And I was able to dev him up to like an 80 or something. And he was a serviceable quarterback. Never great, but he played to what I had. And then the following cycle, I had the Giants, where I had Eli Manning. I'm like, well, obviously he's gone because he's like 35 or whatever. I tried to start Kyle Lauletta that first season of that cycle, who was a rookie at the time. I think he was like a 65 or something. He was so bad, I gave up almost immediately. And then I drafted a quarterback at like pick 15 or something. So I've been there. Really, I think it's a really good point, because they're right. I mean, the quarterbacks aren't playing quarterback. You're the one pressing the buttons. I mean, whether or not you throw 50 interceptions or you throw 10, really the quarterback's not going to change that number too drastically. Yeah, maybe you go from a 99 quarterback throwing 10 interceptions to a 75. Now you throw 15 interceptions. Okay, that doesn't really make that big of a difference. Yes, overall does not tell the full story. Throw power is important depending on who you ask. Accuracy is the most important thing that you need. Age comes into factor. I mean, if you've got an old guy but you know you're a good quarterback, go draft one, you know? Or if you can find a cheap one in free agency who's 25 and, 75 with mid-80s accuracy, sign them. Stick with them. But if you've got a young guy on your roster, and they brought up, it was Tiny who brought this up in chat, talking about how he was going to draft a quarterback and Jalen Hurts wasn't going to be a starter next cycle. Why not? He's like a solid player. He's not great. He might not even be good. But are you really going to get anybody that's significantly better, that's going to really make your team better in the draft? Jalen Hurts is a solid player. You can build with him. You start him for 8 seasons, he's going to get a lot better than he is right now. You're throwing 50 interceptions no matter who's on the team. So until you can clean that up, do you really need to spend a top 10 pick on a quarterback?
Yeah, exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think people just need to be honest about themselves. Take a look, just like I said, look at your season as a whole. Whether you need to go back and watch film from certain games, or just look at your stat sheet, or you just need to stop being stubborn and be honest with how you play, and just think, okay, I threw 50 interceptions with player A. If I had Patrick Mahomes, do I think the difference would have been that big of a, do I think it would have been that big of a deal? Was player A so inaccurate that I threw 35 interceptions, or was and only 15 of those are on me? I highly doubt it. It's probably more like 45 are on you and maybe 5 are bad accuracy. So be honest with yourself. Don't act like the quarterback is the problem, because like you said, and Faz said the same thing on Heat Check, you're the one controlling them on every single play. And if it's an old person, if it's an old QB who's you're going to get rid of eventually anyway, sure. But for like Jalen Hurts, man, Tiny's in such a great spot with that Eagles team, and 3 first-round picks, 2 of them being very high. I think he's got a top 10, and then the Colts are sitting at 12 right now. Uh, builds the. I don't think the Eagles have any linebackers. Find a linebacker. Take the best player available. That's not a quarterback because it probably won't be. Build around your team. Let the quarterback come to you and give Hurts another season, and then maybe look at the deadline, or maybe I don't know, but don't force it. Just don't force it because I doubt the QB is the problem. And I'm not just talking to Tiny. I'm talking general, myself included. Haskins is not my problem. I'm going to address other needs, and I'll worry about the quarterback when the time comes.
So, Hurts is actually better than I thought. While you were speaking, I just looked him up. He's a 75 overall. He's got -3 in morale. That's going to hurt. But you're going to get that -3 in morale no matter who your quarterback is. He's losing 3 to awareness and all 3 of his accuracies and his under pressure rating. Yes, he only has 86 throw power. I'm on the school of thought that throw power is kind of an overrated stat. I hear the pitchforks. Put them down. Yes, 99 throw power would be awesome. I wish I had 99 throw power. Do I need it? No. Do I think 86 can work? Yes. Would I rather have more? Yes. But do I think it's necessary? No. Now, Tiny, if you start your quarterback again next season and you start underthrowing dudes because of his throw power and not just because you waited too long to throw, then okay, you're like, all right, I need to upgrade that throw power. I need to get a better quarterback in here because throw power is not one of those things like accuracy that can improve so much. Whatever you get, you're pretty much stuck with for, give or take 1 or 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky, points in throw power. So really, I mean, you got to make that decision. Is it Hurts or is it you? Because Hurts has 88 throw on the run and 87 speed, 82 play action. I know a lot of guys in this league that could do a lot of dangerous things with him. Now let's say hypothetically, NYT gives up on Jordan Love, and now he signs Jalen Hurts because you cut him or whatever. All of a sudden, now you have to go up against that twice a year. Wouldn't you rather have him be on your team? Wouldn't you rather your division opponents have to take risks on other quarterbacks instead of getting a known quantity in Jalen Hurts? I would. Just a school of thought there. We're not even really talking about Tiny. It's just I got on a tangent.
Well, and real quick, I do want to touch on Tiny, just not to pick on Tiny, but he's just a good example for the topic.
I like picking on Tiny, though.
I mean, you look at it, 86 throw power. Yeah, it's not the best thing in the world. There's times where I think that's what Haskins is at. He might be at 88, but I can't remember. There's times where I'm like, shoot, a bigger rocket arm would have fit that in that tiny gap. But why am I throwing into tiny gaps? And no pun intended. But mold your offense around the quarterback that you have, not the quarterback that you want. He's got a good running back. He's got maybe one of the best offensive lines in the game. That right side of that line is 90, starting with the center, 90, 92, and his right tackle is 89. His left tackle and his left guard are really good devs. One's hidden and one's star. Run the ball, use some play action passes, get Hurts out of the pocket, short intermediate passing game. I know he's got some speedsters on offense, which especially at wide receiver, I'm sure he wants to send them deep, but play within the play. Tailor your offense with the quarterback that you have, not the quarterback that you want. And then once you eventually get that quarterback, then maybe you can change things up. But don't force it. Don't make Hurts do things he can't do.
As an added point to this, you said playing to the style of the quarterback that you have. I want to put it out there that your base play style is pocket passer. I mean, that's what everybody in the league can do. Some do it better than others. I'm talking players, not owners. And that's like your Tom Brady's, who are not really all that athletic. But then you go out here and just going back to Jalen Hurts, just because he's pulled up on my screen right now. He's got 87 speed, 89 acceleration, 88 agility, 88 change of direction. I mentioned that 88 throw on the run, 82 play action. Jalen Hurts can be a pocket passer if you want him to be. He's not going to be as good as Tom Brady, but he can also be a scrambler quarterback, a play action type quarterback, a West Coast Russell. I almost said Russell Westbrook, not that guy. Russell Wilson type quarterback, and he's gonna do it better than a guy like Brady. So having a guy with flexibility like your Jalen Hurts or Justin Fields or Daniel Jones even, that can be more athletic than your just standalone pocket passers. I think that gives you more flexibility. And when you've got one of those guys on your team, I think you owe it to yourself to stick with him and give yourself more flexibility, especially if you're a guy that doesn't win many games. You don't want to not be able to move around. You need to have that flexibility to give yourself the best chance to win.
Yeah, and you don't want to take that quarterback and then you throw 50 picks anyway, or maybe it drops down to 45, and then the guy behind you took a linebacker, which the Eagles have absolutely none, and that guy's a stud, and he's flying all over the field, making plays on every stream you watch, and you're like, shoot, I should have taken that guy. I should have listened to Matt. I should have listened to Meats. Should have listened to Faz. Listen to us. Again, be honest with yourself. Is it you or is it the quarterback? If you can honestly say it's the quarterback, do your thing. But I don't think it is. And you've got a good opportunity with all those picks to make a huge change to this roster and make a huge difference on the roster. Go out and do it. Because these draft classes, from what I've heard, are loaded, and you can make that difference.
I think there's a handful of people in the league that can blame their quarterback truthfully. And it tends to be those guys that are usually better. Bomber, he can blame Mayfield. Mayfield's not great. I don't know if he's going to lose those games because of Mayfield, but he certainly doesn't help. D-Muse, Kellen Mond's not great. He can be, but he's not right now. And it's possibly holding him back. We saw that. I don't know if we really saw that with Dan last year, but we saw what Dan did with bum quarterbacks. He turned them into winners. I mean, you got a guy that was like a 6th round pick or something, Emery Leverett, and turned him into an X Factor in 3 seasons. Shipped him off for multiple 1st round picks. I don't suggest doing that because not everybody is capable, but that's the ability that you have with quarterbacks. And there is a handful of teams in the league that can blame their quarterback, but for the most part, I mean, the quarterback that you are as an owner is the quarterback you're going to see on the screen. I mean, like I said, you're the one pressing the buttons, right?
That's right. And Hurts is only 23. My last point on this, and again, I'm not trying to talk too tiny. He's just a great example. I don't know if you give up on a 23-year-old yet. 75 overall with the athleticism that he has. His accuracies aren't absolutely terrible. And honestly, accuracies, I've seen those fairly easy they seem to go up every single time you get an upgrade. It's almost a guarantee, at least one of them. The throw power is the obvious elephant in the room here, but again, maybe just tailor your season 2 offense around that throw power. Throw some screens in there. You can still utilize Will Fuller and Devontae Smith and Jalen Reagor with speed, with some screens or some drag, some slants. You don't have to just throw a streak to utilize that speed. So that would be my challenge, is just because Faz, you watch him and he's analytical and he's throwing darts all over the field and you can imagine how much fun that is, you don't have the money, and I say you don't have the quarterback to do the things that these rich people have the Mahomes and the Josh Allen. Tailor your offense around what you have. I'm not out there throwing streaks with Dwayne Haskins. I'm trying to keep short intermediate passing games, and I've got a good route runner in Juju to help me with that. That's what I'm trying to do. I would encourage others to be honest with what they have and do the same.
I agree with you. I think that's a good place to leave it. All right, so with the launch of SML Fantasy for these playoffs and next season, Matt and I have decided we are going to put an end, at least temporarily while the SML Fantasy thing is around, to our fantasy game in order to not be repetitive. We may still mention, like, oh, I drafted this guy and this guy's a sleeper. We might still talk about that. I don't know. We'll talk about it on future episodes maybe. But we are going to end that competition. We're going to talk about who won next week. And then we're going to, whoever won, well, I think we said we'd buy somebody a sandwich or something. Um, in the meantime, next season, we wanted to replace that with something. So what we're going to do is Eminem is going to sponsor an SML Survivors pick. That's right. More details are going to come out on this in the coming week. However, generally what we're going to do, and Matt, feel free to add on to this, we're going to have everybody sign up. You know, as many people as want to do it as you can. It's free. We're not charging anything. There's going to be a $25 gift card for whoever lasts the longest. If you don't know what Survivor picks are, basically everyone picks one team that they think's going to win for a given week. If they win, you move on to the next week. If they lose, then you're eliminated, and that's the whole thing. You're done. So we're probably going to do it like this. We're going to start with as many people as we can. We're going to go open-ended for the first few weeks. So you can pick whatever team you want. You can repeat picks if you want. If you want to pick the Chiefs 5 weeks in a row, you can. If after 4 or 5 weeks or whatever, we still have a bunch of people going, we're going to make the rules tougher. We're going to say, okay, now you can't pick a team that you've already picked before. And we'll go from there and see if that eliminates any extra people. And then after that, if we're still going after maybe 8 or 10 weeks, we'll say, okay, now we're going to do only one person can pick this team per week. So we're going to have a Survivor picks draft, kind of. I'm assuming there's only going to be like a handful of people left at this point. And then at the end of the season, whoever lasts the longest, maybe it's week 10, maybe you last the full season. If you last the full season, you're probably just going to have to split it because I don't feel like paying any extra. Whoever lasts the longest is going to get that $25 Amazon gift card. Just a fun little way, and it's a kind of a replacement to our fantasy. And we will be recapping the past week of that on every episode of Eminem in the Morning, starting in 2 weeks at least. We'll see where the SML offseason is next week, and we'll go from there. Matt, do you have anything you want to say about that?
No, I think it's a great idea. You came up with it. It's your idea originally. I didn't have any part in it, but I love it. I hope that we get feedback because just when we lay out the rules and we start going, we're not a dictatorship. We're not setting everything in stone. We would love your feedback on what worked, what didn't work, what would you like to see change next time. Because ideally I would anticipate if this is successful and it's fun for people, we'd just continue to do it. And so I'm excited for that. And then I just want to say, because this happened because Faz is doing the fantasy football and we don't want to duplicate work, but Faz needs to be commended for the amount of effort that he put into his fantasy football. He has the spreadsheet, the point system for the players. Fantastic work. I'm sure he put a lot of time, effort, and thought into it. So good for you, Faz. I think it's really exciting. I got to beta test it a little bit, if you will, and it was a lot of fun. So I hope everybody else enjoys it as much as I did because Faz put in a lot of work. But yeah, I'm excited. SML Survivor. It should be fun. I'm obviously not going to be very good. We're going to get to my picks in a second, but I'm not too good at this.
Yeah, I mean, hats off to Faz. I agree completely. That's going to be loads of fun, and I'm really looking forward to it next season. Well, actually, probably in a day, because we're doing it for the playoffs. That'll be a lot.
Get those lineups in.
Really a lot of fun. Yes, if you're listening to this, we will be in the playoffs by tonight at 10 p.m. Okay, I'm assuming you're listening to this on release day. We're in the playoffs tonight by 10 p.m. Get your fantasy lineup submitted to Faz. The spreadsheet should be in admin updates only, I believe. But yeah, the Survivor picks is just another mini game, if you want to call it that. Just a small little game for the SML, just for some more added fun. And Matt alluded to it. We're not committing to do a second season of this. Just kind of a pilot program. If y'all love it, we'll do as many seasons as you want. But we got a gift card here to get as many people to sign up as we can, and we'll see how it goes. It should be a lot of fun, and keep an eye out for details on that. All right, let's talk picks. Our locked-in picks for the last week. Now, we are still in Week 18. We did pick for Week 18. minor spoiler alert before I get into it. We're not within a game here for the final season scores. So Matt's Week 18 pick has not played yet, but that doesn't matter because the final scores aren't within a game. So Matt, right now you are 2-2 out of the 5 games that you picked, minus the one that didn't play for these last 5 SML weeks. That brings you to 8-7 on the season, which is, I don't know. You tell me. Is that a little bit disappointing?
Well, I mean, it's better than my SML record, so I'm gonna take it.
8-7 is better than your. Oh, I guess you did fall off, didn't you?
Yeah, only because we didn't pick 2 more games probably, but
eight,
yeah,
9, yeah,
it's still above 500, so
I didn't realize
that'll work.
You fell under 500. I did not realize that.
It was a rough end of the season. I had a lot of juggernauts.
We don't have to talk about how you fell under 500, as I will not say that anymore tonight. So you went 2-2 in the last 5 weeks, not counting Week 18. My Week 18 game just finished before we recorded. I went 5-0. So if it was close, it's not anymore. I finished the season at 12-4 with my picks, and you finished at 8-7, maybe 9-7, maybe 8-8. 8-8 would be funnier, but 8-7. So we're gonna keep this going for the next couple of seasons at least. Maybe we'll cut it like halfway through the cycle, and we'll just call it that's a season of locked-in picks, and then we'll start over if it gets too far out of hand. But who knows? I mean, it's within a couple of games. I mean, really, last week there was a 1-game difference, and I just had a better week than you picking, Matt. So we're going to keep it going for a couple of seasons, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, so I finished 12-4. You finished 8-7. GG's for this season, and that's it. Matt, do you have anything else to add on this episode of Eminem in the Morning?
Nope, I'm ready. Let's shut her down and let's get ready for the playoffs, man. I can't wait. It's going to be both. I know I've talked about the AFC a little bit more, but they're both going to be exciting. SML playoffs are always exciting, so let's do it.
Yeah, man, I'm looking forward to it. Playoffs are here. Get excited. By the time that we record next week, it might be in the Super Bowl, or we might even be in the off season. So we're going to have an exciting episode next week recapping the playoffs, and I'm looking forward to it. SML playoffs, best time of the year. Let's get excited, and we'll talk to you next week.